to stop honoring people like Roman Polanski and Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Just don't do that.
Yeah.
Especially now as we move forward. Just don't have a standing ovation for Roman Polanski. Just don't.
Try not to skirt that.
Yeah, just
even if you think it, just think it.
Yeah, just
and
think
don't
exactly.
out loud it.
Yeah, yeah.
Here comes the theme.
Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and work our way to 100% fresh. I'm Max.
And I'm Scott. And today we're talking Arrival, rated 94% on Rotten Tomatoes and chosen by you, the listener.
By listeners like you.
You know who you are.
Yeah, so for any new listeners out there, we started
know you're
with
still joining.
Anyone still joining? We started with a 0% film way back when, and each week we've gone up the scale on Rotten Tomatoes. And when we hit the 90s, we started having a listener vote. And so keep an ear out, and you can contribute to one of our future episodes.
Yeah, next week we're going to move on to the 95%ers, and then we'll have a new poll open for what you guys want us to watch on 95%. But you guys picked Arrival. And it's tight competition, too. You know?
Yeah.
Whiplash and Dazed and Confused and Arrival were all three very close, like within a couple votes. Juno lagged behind a bit, but
yeah.
No shame, all heavy hitters.
Yeah. They got a hamburger phone, so they don't got to complain. But
and I think our thoughts on Arrival are pretty well documented at this point. But because I saw it opening night and wept like a baby.
Yeah.
I remember when you finally watched it, you really enjoyed it. We talked about it on the podcast again. So hopefully we can talk about some things, maybe some like deeper cuts, you know?
Some deeper cuts, yeah.
But before we get to that, Max, what have you been watching?
Well, I've seen highlights from this show quite a bit. But recently, me and my wife started diving into Nathan For You.
My man.
The much highly appraised, I wouldn't call it, I guess, sketch or prank show. It's a weird, like documentary series.
Reality and...
Yeah.
It is almost like a mockumentary.
He's playing a character,
for sure,
but he inserts himself into real scenarios.
Yeah.
And the most annoying but best part about it is that a few of his pranks actually made it to national news.
Yeah.
Like when I finally saw the dumb Starbucks episode, I remember that being all over the news, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen because I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But I remember it being everywhere.
Oh yeah,
all over the internet.
I remember that too. I remember that. Because I started watching Nathan For You a couple of years ago, and I've been on you a little bit to try it and shown you some clips. But Dumb Starbucks, I definitely remember seeing years before I watched.
Yeah, and it's almost funnier because that was season 2 of the show, so the first season was already out in theory.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Well, I mean, Nathan Fielder, that's not like a household name, and that actually works to his benefit because I think it was in an AMA he did on Reddit. He was talking about how they've done 4 seasons now, and he said in the later seasons it's been a little harder because one of the cruxes of the show is that the people, the businesses he goes to, don't know who he is. And they actually think they're on like a business advice thing, and some of the ideas are so outlandish you'd think that would have to be a red flag. But some people, I feel like when you're on TV and stuff, you want to go with it still. And like in the most recent season, there was an episode where a woman working in shipping and tariffs and stuff said she was having some problems with the cost of shipping some items because of the complicated tariffs. And so one of the items that has like a no tariff or is tariff exempt or something like that is musical instruments. So he remarketed a smoke detector as a musical instrument, the blues smoke detector. And that was another one that ended up on the news. It's very silly, but
that's funny.
When you hear something like that, I immediately would think, okay, this is such a dumb idea. Something's got to be up. But maybe when the camera's in your face, you're getting the interview and everything, just kind of ignore it.
Yeah, and I think some people are willing to go with it because they're just, okay, they'll be on TV, it's free advertising. Yeah. You could tell when the people are hostile. It's a way funnier. Like only one scenario has made me actually kind of bummed out when they were being hostile, which was it was in the Dumb Starbucks episode. The coffee guy seemed like very hostile because he put him out of his bubble of the comfort zone. He definitely took him out of there, and you could tell the guy it was more like a introverted hostileness versus like the toy company where the guy was just a dick to him.
Yeah.
And then
did you see that Brian Wolf?
Yeah,
one of those
Brian Wolf.
Private investigators.
His is hilarious when he's hostile because he's just a jerk.
Yeah, he got his own show too.
Yeah,
Never Cry Wolf. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, those are funny, but it is interesting to see him play this ridiculous character that's probably based off himself but exaggerated.
Nathan Fielder.
And
he's so straight faced.
And when you see him, the few times he's about to crack, that's like the best thing. Yeah.
When he did the episode with the gas rebate, 50 cents per gallon after rebate, and they all had to hike up the mountain
thing at the end.
Yeah, and the gas station attendant was like, "If you drink your grandson's pee, you'll have good health."
Yeah.
And Nathan's just like, "What?" Like, that's the kind of thing you couldn't write. I know people who doubt the legitimacy of it. I think it, but when you hear something like that, it's like no writer's room would come up with that.
The Exorcist episode a little bit after that, he's in. You could see his reflection in the mirror where he's like looking away.
Yeah,
and I'm sure it's because you can't watch an exorcist do all this stuff.
That was the realtor who advertised like ghost-free homes.
I've heard she still does that.
She does. So in at the start of the 4th season, they did a special called Nathan Fielder: A Celebration, and they returned to a lot of the things they've done, and they go back to her. And the guy who was doing her, like, what do they call it? Not smushing. What is the
smudging?
Smudging. He died, and so she had a new smudger. And in the celebration, the new medium connects to the spirit world to talk to the old medium.
So the chunky dude,
who said he was on the OJ trial.
Okay, so he died.
He died. Yeah.
Rest in peace, man.
But then in the celebration, the new guy is talking to him, and it's so funny. And Nathan asked him, he's like, he said that he worked on the OJ trial, and he's like, he did, yeah. He's like, well, does he know who did it or not? And then the new guy's like, he's like, OJ definitely did it. That's not what I'm getting from him. That's just me, though. And it's like, it's all so silly.
That's funny.
It's such a great show. It's probably my favorite comedy right now.
It's definitely entertaining, that's for sure. So.
The last episode of the 4th season, the most recent one, it's called Finding Francis, and it's like a legitimate 2-hour documentary. Did you see the episode where to help the the souvenir shop get business, they faked a film?
Yeah.
Do you remember they brought in that Bill Gates impersonator?
Yeah. So is it about him?
It's he kept showing up at their office or their studios in Nathan For You, and he kept talking about how like he should have married Frances 60 years ago or something. So then him and Nathan go back to Arkansas where he grew up, try to find her. And
don't say too much more.
Yeah, I won't say more than that, but it's just like it's this weirdly compelling character study. Yeah. Like it still has the same kind of humor throughout, but it's also like a really almost dark insight into someone. It's so cool.
We need to just quickly discuss how silly it is that everyone thought in the gift shop episode that was legitimately Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Where it looks just enough like Johnny Depp, where from
with the sunglasses,
you can maybe think it, but then when you get close and he talks different, it's like a short Latino man or something. That was the funniest thing I think I've seen.
That was also probably his best scheme because all those people bought those souvenirs. He's had some good ideas, like when he disguised the exterminators cart as the Chinese dragon and stuff.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny. That was good. Are you watching it on Hulu?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Hulu has either all the seasons or maybe just the first 3 streaming
we're watching
right
Hulu.
now.
I think it said it had 4 seasons.
Okay, so they're all there. So I recommend it to everybody. Yeah. It's a tough sell because it's kind of a weird concept.
Once you get past like the first episode,
once you watch an episode, you're gonna you'll know what it's about. Yeah.
It's so awkward, but
you'll see the humor in it.
Most of the awkward humor is on him.
Yeah.
So most of it's like lampooning him almost.
Yeah, and
he does. When the person's ridiculous, like the pee drinking guy, you can't shield him from that. But a lot of it's he takes the heat.
Yeah.
So it's almost like where
it's part of his
a prank show like Jackass, it's to fool the person.
Yeah.
This is using everyone else to make him the jackass, basically.
Yeah. He's the fool.
Not Jackass, punked.
Yeah.
Jackass 2 in a way, but not really.
No, I know what you mean though. Yeah. It's so good. I don't know if they've announced another season, and I imagine it's not going to be a permanent run because, again, assuming that it continued to grow, more and more people would know about it, it'd be harder and harder to execute an idea like this. But like, it's so funny.
It is definitely
really
funny.
I'm glad you're watching it.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I've always meant to watch it. I don't know how long it's been on Hulu, but
it's been off and on. Like it would be on Hulu like leading up to a season, and then they'd take it off, and
just
all the streaming stuff. So I think I own all the seasons on Amazon.
Oh, cool.
Just because
because you would buy them.
Yeah, like one time.
You and Paul always tell me about the show. I believe.
Yeah. So. My buddy Blake was staying with me for a little bit, and he hadn't seen it, and I wanted to watch it with him, and I think the season was like $10, and they're like 7 to 8 episodes usually each season. So I was just like, yeah, I'll buy that, and I've rewatched it enough times that it's been worth it. Yeah,
man. So it has our stamp of approval. Good. That's for sure.
Double podcast stampy.
I've also been watching a new Netflix release.
Oh, what's that?
Called Disenchantment.
Is it good?
It's okay if you like. This is what I'll preface it. I heard it gets really, really good at the end.
This is the Matt Groening who did Simpsons. Is he still involved in The Simpsons?
I mean, he's the creator of it. So
either way, he's the creator. He did Futurama.
Yeah, and Futurama is where I really love. I love that show. Yeah. And
this is his Netflix fantasy series. Disenchantment.
Yes, and I've seen Futurama so much that it's hard for me to even go back and watch it again. But and The Simpsons, I loved the old stuff when I was a kid watching it, but I don't watch it anymore.
Still an achievement though. Still going.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's this one, like you said, it's a fantasy show. The premise is funny, which is just, I mean, like a princess and 2 sidekicks getting into trouble. But there's a lot of good fantasy tropes they play on. It's funny so far, but it hasn't been like where Futurama legitimately was like an amazing show.
Yeah.
But I heard this one picks up a lot towards the end of the season. Okay. So I'm about 4 or 5 episodes in, and it's solid. It's fun. But it's not like go out and see this immediately yet. But
what about
I enjoy
for someone like me? I've seen a couple episodes of The Simpsons, but wasn't allowed to watch it growing up, and I never watched Futurama. So someone who hasn't watched those, would you still recommend it?
Yeah, I mean it has good humor to it. Yeah. It's fun.
How many episodes in the season there? 12?
Probably. I honestly don't even know. I mean, it's a shorter show because it's like 30 minutes each episode. Okay, so sometimes those are longer, sometimes they're shorter. But
it got good reviews, I know.
And most people, I think they said once they stuck with it, it got so good at the end that it makes up for it. It's just this. I would say by the 3rd and 4th episode, it was a lot funnier than the first 2 episodes. But the first 2 episodes were fine. They were just kind of story setting the pace of the story and all that. So
I've been looking for a new comedy. So
I would say give it a shot. It's at the worst, you spend 30 minutes watching a show that you're not crazy about, but it's not bad. Yeah. It's, I mean, like I said, it might not be a home run, but I enjoyed it enough to keep watching.
Plus, when you already have Netflix, what's the worst? I mean, your investment's so low at that point.
It's well paced. It doesn't like linger. It moves fast.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
But no, I enjoyed it enough to keep watching it. I know I'll watch more of it. So
right on, man. So I've been looking for a new comedy. So it's not a new comedy, but I've been I started watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I like it so far. I haven't been watching the old episodes. I watched just like the newest season, or maybe 2 seasons ago, because now it's on HBO. And the old episodes, when did Curb start? Like 2002, 2003?
That show's been running forever.
Yeah,
they just pick a month and they do a season and then they're done.
Yeah. And I feel like it. I don't know. I mean, Seinfeld is pretty timeless. So Curb being from Larry David as well, I imagine it's also timeless. But the film quality and everything is a little different. So I figured I would just watch the new episode. And I watched 2 or 3 episodes now, and I do like it. There's some concepts that are just really funny. One of the episodes I watched, he was like talking to a lesbian woman, and she was about to get married. And the debate that they were having was who was going to be the bride and the groom of the 2 lesbians. And one was a very masculine woman and the other was a very feminine woman, but the feminine woman was going to be the groom and she was going to be the bride. So Larry kept saying, "You're more of a bride, you're more of a groom," stuff like that, and "You're a classic bride," and it was funny. And then another one was like the pickle king or the pickle hero. Everyone wants to be the pickle hero, the guy who opens the pickle jar. Yeah, but I mean, they're just little things like that. The same things that made Seinfeld funny.
Yeah, it's the thing. That kind of humor is usually like what everyone thinks but doesn't want to say.
Yeah, it's like everyone gets the concept.
Yeah.
So it hasn't like sunk into me yet where I'm like, I gotta watch the next episode. But I imagine I'll stick with at least the recent season, and then if I really do enjoy it, I'll probably try to go back and watch the rest. I don't think there's like an overarching story, just like how Seinfeld, you could watch any episode of Seinfeld, but there was sort of an overarching
yeah. There's usually like callbacks and stuff
George
like that.
George working for the Yankees, stuff like that. But so that's the one I've been trying. And then I did watch a stand-up special, a new one from an older comedian.
Ooh.
Back to the stand-up stage for the first time in a while, I think.
Who
first time I've
seen
him. Dimitri Martin.
I was thinking about watching that.
Yeah, it's really good. If you liked, I mean, Dimitri Martin did his his stand-up heyday was in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And then he dipped his toe in acting quite a bit, and he was in some good stuff. Like he had a good guest episode on New Girl.
Yeah.
He was in that Taking Woodstock or whatever, the Ang Lee movie.
I don't remember that.
Wasn't he in that one?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure. I don't think it was called Taking Woodstock, but it was something about Woodstock.
Sounds like a movie name. So.
Yeah. And then Moneyball went through a lot of production hell, like in its production. But Demetri Martin was originally going to play Jonah Hill's character, which is very funny when you look at the two of them physically.
Yeah.
But when Demetri Martin was playing that character, it was the character was still Paul DePodesta, and Demetri Martin looks like that guy. He was the actual assistant GM to Billy Bean. Mm-hmm. And then in the final release of Moneyball, something must have happened where Paul DePodesta said that he didn't want to be represented in the movie, so they changed the role, and Jonah Hill plays him, and it's Peter Brand and that stuff. So he's had some acting that he's done, obviously, but I don't know if he's been doing stand-up continually through that time. This was his first special that I've seen in a long time.
Does he still rock a guitar and do a drawing pad?
He has a drawing pad for a good length. I'm pretty sure he has a guitar for one or two bits.
As far as modern comedians with current prop bits,
yeah.
I mean, you could barely count that as a prop bit, but it still counts.
It's a prop, I would say.
He's one of the better ones, I'll say.
I would put Bo Burnham as the number one, and
I haven't seen enough Bo. I know people like him a lot, but I haven't seen enough of his specials. Yeah. But I've seen little bits of his.
The two on Netflix you should watch. Yeah. I mean, it's musical comedy too, more so than even Demetri Martin. Demetri Martin's like very light, just a guitar usually. Bo Burnham's usually writing like comedy songs, and they're very good. Like I've played you the country song.
Yeah, the country songs are really funny.
And I wouldn't call him a prop comedian per se, but he does what Bo Burnham does. What Bo Burnham does more than any other comedian I've seen is so much timing production with like lights and stuff like that. And what I find interesting is for all these Netflix specials, all of them, I mean, John Mulaney, everyone who's doing them, I feel like it's probably a stipulation that Netflix says you have to do some little thing that's not just the stand-up. So like, did you watch Kid Gorgeous at Radio City? John Mulaney one. Remember he has that like 1 minute opener where he's backstage and...
I think if they do say that, it's because that used to be an old staple of comedy specials.
Oh, okay.
Like for sure... The Netflix ones do it a lot, but
I thought it might have been a Netflix. I thought it might have been a Netflix thing because in the Demetri Martin one, they do something cool.
I saw the intro with him talk about the advertising stuff or the trailer. I don't know what that is, but
in the special,
it auto plays when you select it for the Demetri Martin one, like a little banner.
The banner,
where
the banner ad.
He kept talking about like flying himself with a drone and put himself on a billboard, and it was making me laugh. But it's
kind of meta.
Yeah.
What he does in the special that you wouldn't get if you were there is he does like voiceover work. So it's like he's doing the comedy. He's like, yeah, that joke landed well. I think I'll do a bit here with the mic stand. And then it shows him like walking around pretending to be blind, and he's like, no, got to go back to the classics. And then it'll just go back to the stand-up. So it's just kind of funny like that. And I mean, the stand-up special the stand-up was funny if you were there, and then it's like a little detail. And then like in Bo Burnham's, in one of them, I remember there's like a 30 or 40 second opener where he's wearing clown makeup and walking to the stage basically. And there's some voiceover there too. So there's always a little something I feel like.
Yeah. And there is some precedence for it where it'd be like a comedian running through the streets of New York or something to their location. People have done that for sure. So I think it's kind of an old staple that they're bringing back in a way. And I feel like if you're trying to show like a funny situation, and maybe it's a good way to also show that you have a little bit more chops than just standing on stage. So there is some practicality to it, but sometimes they bookend the specials too with them.
That's what the Netflix ones do. That's interesting because now that I'm thinking, all of my stand-up experience, like listening, that's not experience. All the stand-up I've listened to has been either just like a CD, just like the audio, or like on Comedy Central, where it's like a half hour, and they usually don't have that kind of thing. They probably cut them.
I think for like...
But like a big HBO special would be different.
Ones, and then...
like an Eddie Murphy special.
Like if there was a legit long-form Comedy Central one, they would do it those, I feel like. But I've seen them before, and I see them now again in the Netflix ones. So I thought
it was just a Netflix thing, but that's cool.
Yeah. But it's cool, though. I mean, it shows if you're noticing it that they're doing right, you know? So
I mean, the Demetri Martin I was shocked at how much I enjoyed it.
I'm trying to remember... For John Mulaney's New in Town, I feel like that one had an opening bit.
It had like a
and I don't think that was Netflix only. Yeah, it had a jingle. It was like a TV show intro.
It was like a TV show intro.
Yeah,
which
so
is kind of ironic
like
when he had the failed sitcom. I think after that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because then Comeback Kid was his next one.
Yeah,
I love John Mulaney, man.
Yeah, me too.
I'm really enjoying stand-up these days.
Same here, man.
Like Tom Segura, I've been really enjoying.
I recommend his podcast, Your Mom's House.
Okay.
They have a YouTube channel where you could watch them, which is funny. Him and his wife.
Is it video or is it just the audio?
That one's the actual recording of it, kind of like how Joe Rogan does with his. Okay. And it's them in their little home studio, him and Christina Pazitsky, his wife, and they host it. It's really funny. It's my kind of humor, which is kind of gross out humor, and just watching clips and talking about them. So it's definitely, if you laugh at things I laugh at, you'll probably laugh at this podcast.
I think you got a good sense of humor.
Thank you, buddy.
We laugh at similar jokes in movies.
Yeah, and we like a lot of dumb videos. So what I'm saying is, if you like dumb videos, you'll like his podcast. And then I've just been listening to a lot of stand-up lately. I've been digging on some, I think his name is Jared Carmichael.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of his stuff. His delivery is really good. He has really a very dry delivery, and he just kind of says things matter-of-factly.
Yeah.
And I think that's enjoyable to hear sometimes.
What's another like under the radar maybe? Like everyone knows the big names of stand-up, but that you could recommend to me.
Oh, man, you put me on the spot. The problem is I don't know how to gauge if people know a lot of people. I listened to an episode of this Your Mom's podcast. They interviewed a woman named Nikki Glazer, who was pretty funny. Okay. She was pretty pervy, but funny.
And she does stand-up.
She does stand-up. And then there's a guy named Chris D'Elia who's pretty funny.
Yeah, I know Chris D'Elia.
And then I think, what's his name? Theo Von something. Most people just know him as Theo Von. Okay. I think it's Theo Von. He's pretty funny. He's kind of like a Southern kind of funny. There's a guy from our hometown.
Have you listened to Ryan Hamilton before, stand up?
No, I have not.
He's pretty good. You check him out. I'll check out Nikki Glazer or Theo Von. We'll report back.
Rory Scovel. That's it.
Oh, wait. I do feel like maybe I know that.
Yeah, name. He's from Greenville, South Carolina. He lives in L.A., and he's been getting some movie and TV. Yeah, he was in I Feel Pretty. He was in The House. He's pretty funny.
Oh, yeah. I recognize him.
Yeah, he's been on Conan a ton and some... I don't know if he has a Netflix special yet, but he does a good Southern thing. Yeah. And you can tell it's an act that he puts out there, but he does it well. Yeah.
It's kind of embellished a bit, maybe.
Yeah. And the thing with comedy is like it takes seeing a lot of someone to know if you like them enough to tell people you like them.
Yeah.
I'll just watch comedy stuff now and just try to see if I like people, but it's kind of hard with Netflix because they have so much out there.
There's a ton, and I think it's great.
It's
stand-up.
Awesome.
I feel like was kind of not in the limelight a bit before Netflix really started investing in it, right?
Because
Comedy Central was a big thing, and then
Comedy Central had it big.
Yeah,
they were pushing a ton of it, and it used to be the place to watch it.
Yeah,
and then they had all their animated shows, and they started going that route, and they kind of swayed away from it and started doing the roast only. They do the roast all the time, so you have to pay attention to comedy to find out who is even on the roast.
I've never watched a roast before.
They're all right, but you can tell that it's a lot of like if they're not a comedian going on stage, someone else wrote their jokes.
Yeah,
and that's kind of it's like whatever. Yeah. But when the comedians are on there, they're pretty funny, but they kind of eventually they're all
more
the
like
same.
Written shows though, like Comedy Central did more of
they started getting to and those are great, and most of them pull from actual stand-up comedians.
It's just a direction that you go with your content.
But Netflix is good because they do bring that back. So and I've been watching a lot more since Netflix really started pouring into it. It's cool. It's funny because there's always an ongoing debate with comedy too of what's actually offensive, what's actually funny, and that's a hard one to answer. But as somebody who I both respect, being respectful, but also upholding actual, the ability to be open and honest and comedy. I think it's a hard balance, but obviously some lines are harder to cross with justification, and that's the only way I could put it. But someone's bound to get offended. If it's legitimately offensive, it's different. Like the Michael Richards outbreak is a different thing than someone making a joke to make a point about something offensive. Yeah. Especially if the point actually is there and you're missing it, Yeah. Michael Richards wasn't making a point. That was just a bad call. So.
Yeah. I mean, is it Jerry Seinfeld said he won't play at college campuses anymore because there's so much.
A lot of comedians won't now.
There's so much like sensitivity and people just don't react the way that. I mean, they don't like treat him with any respect after like a joke that rubs them the wrong way. They're looking to be offended.
And there's a conversation of punching up versus punching down is what they call it. Where if you're punching up, you're making, you're more lampooning the structures that rule society. punching down is making fun of someone who doesn't have a defense. And there's a lot of debate around that. I honestly don't have much to say about it that hasn't been said by smarter people than me, so I'm not going to go into it. But regardless, I like stand-up comedy a lot.
I'm liking it. It's good to put on like when you're going to bed. That's what I've been doing.
I can clean better when I listen to stand-up comedy. So,
podcast stand-up comedy, those are the things. All comedians. So. And then I rewatched Signs.
Speaking of comedians, go on.
Us, you mean? I rewatched Signs. I love it.
It's a good movie.
It's great.
You know what's cool about Signs?
Everything. Honest to God, everything.
A bunch of aliens show up on Earth.
It is an interesting... Is there any movie where the aliens announced prior to their arrival?
Contact.
You could argue that Arrival, they do that too.
Well, Contact definitely does.
Yeah. That's true, actually.
With Arrival, you could argue that they did, but in a way they didn't. And in a way they are.
Ooh.
So.
But I just really love Signs. It's written so well.
So all three of these films that we just mentioned together, they get that I forgot what movie it was where I mentioned it before. It might have been in Contact, where there's the Contact episode I mentioned. There's an excitement, electrifying feeling to these films.
Yeah.
All three of them capture that perfectly.
They all do it in a different way too.
For sure.
Like Contact has the largest scale where they're building the massive ship and it's this big NASA operation, it's this big
international
government operation. Then Arrival, like if you're going down the line of scale, Arrival still has like an international coalition, and there's like 4 characters that are really impactful. Like there's other characters that come up like the soldiers who try to blow up the alien thing, but they're not like key characters. There's really just a couple. And then you go to Signs and it's down to like the full family level, and it's really cool.
Yeah. And I mean,
they're all good movies and they all succeed on different levels.
A similar but different tale, and it's all about really the human struggle within it.
Yeah,
that's what's
for
cool.
Sure. And they kind of all handle them in different ways. Like Arrival is about the human struggle in a totally different axis than Signs.
Yeah.
My one more thought on Signs before we shouldn't talk about like comparing them that much, but I don't think I mentioned it on the podcast, but it's like, I think people rejected it a bit because it is pretty objectively about faith, just in general, like not even directly in a religious sense, but also in a religious sense. But I think it's such a powerful movie to have a discussion about faith or religion, if you want, compared to like The Shack or God's Not Dead. Like those movies are made for established Christians to kind of celebrate their religion. And Signs is like a legitimate thinker. Like those scenes with Mel Gibson when he's talking about there are 2 types of people: those who believe like that there's someone up there pulling the strings, or those who believe that there's just odds that something happens and it's random. And like the way that whole climax comes together with the asthma and his throat closing so that it's like, you can still look at it either way, but for him, obviously, he was having a crisis of faith throughout the movie, and that's how it worked for him. But just watching it, and as someone who you also had, like in your youth, church was a thing, and maybe not as much anymore, but it's just not as important in our lives now. It's still just very interesting.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing is, I think with storytelling, you can definitely tap into what makes, that's a good discussion to have.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are quick to write off that as a valid, like, type of expression in art.
Yeah.
And it's silly because it's one of the most interesting things about humans in a way.
It's like so ingrained in human nature throughout the history of time.
Yeah. I mean even in other stories where it's not about that at all. Like the original Star Wars, It's Han Solo coming to grips with the fact that there might be something religious out there. There might be this, spiritual force that he's denied his whole life. And that's like a D plot in the movie, but it's still there, So it's like, that's a compelling thing that a lot of movies, some cover and some just ignore it. But you couldn't really find that same thread here in this film Arrival. But there is kind of this predestination thread in the movie that's pretty interesting. And I think pairing that kind of stuff with science fiction is like the best thing you can do.
For sure.
I mean, it
because
tells
it's like
a more complete story.
And it challenges those themes of belief and faith in the established order and stuff in such a different axis than any other story could.
Yeah.
You know, or even any discussion. Like, if you were to have a theological debate, you would never, I mean, it wouldn't bring up the same evocative emotions that like an alien invasion would.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many there's so many angles of it. There's the fear. There's, what does this mean for the rest of the world? What else is out there? Why are these things so far ahead of us? Like, there's so many questions that it brings to your mind, and that's why they're compelling. I think they make the most compelling micro stories. Like, Independence Day is an example of the macro alien invasion movie where it's about the war between the aliens.
But there are threats. There's threats in that one.
But don't get me wrong. There is.
If you ranked these films, Arrival or Contact would be number one, with Signs probably right under it as far as like the global scale of it. You know.
Yeah.
Independence Day is a global scale, but it's also
there are like human stories.
There's human stories in it. They're more.
Yeah.
I don't. Is that one's not Michael Bay, is it? No,
Independence Day is what's his name? Who did
Roland Emmerich.
Yeah, Roland Emmerich.
But in that one, I mean, you have a couple interesting subplots.
For sure.
But they're not on this scale. I mean, I'll say that. Like,
it's like the A plot in Independence Day is the global conflict, and the B through D's are
the emotional,
and the personal stories. Whereas the other three,
because there's
the A plot is a personal level story,
and there's some cool stories like the father who has been abducted by aliens, and he wants revenge, and that people treat him, even though there's UFOs in the sky now, people still treat him like he's a freak.
He's a nut.
And you know, the president struggling to keep things together while losing his wife. Like, you could tease those out and make your own serious movie about that subplot. It'd be interesting, but
it's a different movie, but it would be interesting. And then there's Independence Day whatever. I already forgot the title. And the A plot there is why did this
and I was going to
say
you could just end the sentence by saying, and then there's the Independence Day whatever.
Yeah, I literally
end of the sentence.
Is it resurgence?
Sure, I think so.
No, that's not
regurgitation. Right. I think is what it is. Independence Day.
That's what I did with my popcorn. Max, what's the plot synopsis for Arrival, the actual movie we'll be discussing?
A linguist is recruited by the military to communicate with alien life forms after 12 mysterious spacecrafts land around the world.
Yeah, man.
A cunning linguist.
This is... we've talked about Denis Villeneuve quite a bit. I think we've had... What episode are we on? 120-something? 124?
124.
We've had 123 episodes of practice on pronouncing his name, and I think... I've settled on Denis Villeneuve as my pronunciation. Max, where are you at?
I just call him Denny. It's
okay.
One name to me.
And you love Denny's, so.
It's true, man. Wins over my hammy.
This is our first film of his that we're actually discussing, right?
We discussed a little bit about Blade Runner when we saw it.
Yeah, we talked about it.
But it wasn't in our countdown. It was just, we talked about it because we talked about Blade Runner.
And because it was a big release last year.
Yeah.
But as far as our actual percentages... This is our first actual.
I mean, we've also brought him up as much as humanly possible.
Have, yeah. So. He's probably he's a top 3 currently working director.
Yeah,
did we talk about him when we talked about Dune, because he's doing the next Dune? That might not have been announced yet. I don't know.
We've talked about it since then for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then like Timothée Chalamet getting casted and everything. Like,
did he do Whiplash too?
No, that was Damien Chazelle.
Damien Chazelle, that's it. Okay, I was like, wait a second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Denis Villeneuve's other biggest works are Prisoners.
We've talked about that one a little bit.
Blade Runner 2049, Sicario.
That's we've talked about that one.
He did one of his first English language films was Enemy, which is like very smaller scale with Jake Gyllenhaal, and it's an interesting film still.
Yeah.
But Arrival came out in 2016, much acclaim by science fiction fans and just movie fans alike.
Yeah, and it was a Best Picture nom, if I'm correct.
8 Oscar noms, and it won one. But
there was some controversy because some of the acting was nominated, and people felt Amy Adams was very much snubbed for this film.
Yeah, there was a lot of outrage, in particular for Amy Adams, because not only Arrival, but she was also very good in Nocturnal Animals. And she didn't get nominated for that either. And Meryl Streep was nominated, I believe, for Florence Foster Jenkins, I believe it was called.
What's that?
Exactly. No, but that's what people say. Because Meryl Streep, what is she at, like 20 Oscar noms now.
Yeah, I think her name's printed on the card no matter what.
She's gonna get nominated for
Mamma Mia too.
Didn't she win the Golden Globe for Mamma Mia?
Probably.
I'm pretty sure she did for Best Actress in a Comedy Musical. Maybe she was just nominated, but that shows that the governing bodies of these award shows are all about Meryl Streep. But
there's a lot of politics involved in there too.
It could have also been a split of people who thought Amy Adams should have been nominated for Arrival versus Nocturnal Animals. There's no rule that says you can only be nominated for one film, I don't think.
Yeah.
But to be... I feel like if I were in the Academy, you know, as a member of the Scoots Academy, this comes across my mind a lot. But like, you wouldn't want to write the same name twice, you know, because they're not going to win for both, and the nominee is still a big honor, even if you don't win. Because if
they're nominated twice, they're also taking someone else out for being nominated.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But
some years it's probably like 4 Meryl Streeps on the card,
and they got to figure out what to do. Yeah, and then Meryl Streep probably wins. But Amy Adams carries this movie.
Oh yeah,
and
it's like 90% her basically.
Yeah, and I think the other major characters, Jeremy Renner is in it. Amy Adams plays Dr. Louise Banks, by the way, that cunning linguist. Jeremy Renner plays a scientist, Ian Donnelly. They're kind of the main two. They're working together to figure out this communication with the aliens.
The first act heavily has Forrest Whitaker. Yep. He disappears kind of throughout the rest of the film because he's less important. Yeah. But he comes back towards the end.
Yeah, and the biggest achievement of Forrest Whitaker's character in the movie is there are concepts that they need to explain to the audience about learning language and how to communicate. And Forrest Whitaker plays a colonel in the military, and everything that Renner and Adams are doing, they need to explain to him. So the biggest achievement is rather than, and there is like one voiceover, which I think was mostly in it to save time, but the biggest achievement of the movie is even with these pretty high scientific concepts, they always explain them in a natural way.
Yeah.
Because they have to explain it to Forrest Whitaker in a way he would understand, or to Colonel, what was his character's name? Colonel Weber, in a way that he would understand, it in turn explains it to the audience. Yeah. So there's the analogy with the kangaroo. And there's this where she puts the sentence on the board and breaks down why it's so important to teach each concept, and it makes it make more sense.
And they multi-layer a lot of it too. There's a portion where they kind of give you a huge hint as to what's going on in the story, where Louise talks to her daughter and like this weird, it seems like a flashback. It
seems like a memory.
But it's not. You don't realize that till later, unless you've already started picking up on it. There are some hints before that, but at this point, you kind of start understanding there's more to it, where she says, ask your father. There's this whole conversation, and it's about a zero-sum thing. Jeremy Renner says it at the same time, and they bring it up throughout like that portion, that sequence of the film. It comes up, but it's like a multi-layered way, because the daughter asks, she defines it. She's like, "What is where both parties win, basically."
Yeah, it's a non-zero-sum game.
Yeah, and so that's a really clever way to, number one,
explain the concept,
teach a vocabulary word, and also drop like a major hint that there's some chronological shenanigans happening.
Yeah. And so they start. So as Max mentioned, the big reveal of the movie and basically the climax is you find out that the alien species that came, to them, time is not linear. It's something you can move around, just like physical space. And the movie starts with it's kind of filmed in an almost dreamlike way, with some like fading and lens flare and everything, but it's shots of Amy Adams and her daughter.
Yeah.
And it goes from her being born to her dying of leukemia or cancer as a teenager. And then you see Amy Adams, and she's like a very broken person at the start. Like, you can tell the way they set it up is that she's obviously grieving. Her daughter died, her husband left her, all that, or her husband might have died, whatever. So she's just kind of going through the motions as she's teaching and as all these things begin. But really, what you find out is she's mostly just unfulfilled.
Yeah.
But the reveal at the end is, and then throughout the movie, you see more scenes. And it's a scene like Max mentioned with that non-zero-sum game, where another movie might do that. It would show that flashback, and it would be like what jogs Amy Adams' memory to be like, we have to do this, and it relates back to this character history and all that. But what you find out is those are scenes she's seeing of her future interacting with her daughter finding out about her husband, all that. Because as Dr. Banks is working with the aliens more, learning their language more, she's also gaining the ability to maneuver through time, essentially.
Yeah.
And then it ends up solving the core conflict of the movie. The aliens, basically throughout the aliens, are trying to communicate this to the different human parties who are involved, and they do it in such clever ways, which we can go into a little bit. But there's like the biggest coalitions is there's the Chinese government and like the U.S. side. And at one point, maybe 2/3 of the way through the movie, the Chinese government's like, they told us they had a weapon for us, so we're shutting everything down. And if they don't surrender in 24 hours, we're going to war with the aliens or whatever. And then there's like a bombing at the U.S. site from these soldiers who are very afraid. They're fearful of what the alien invasion means. They're all riled up. They put a bomb in the ship, and it causes other things to happen throughout on the other alien ships. And as this is all blowing over is when Amy Adams is picking up. She fully grasps that she's able to move her consciousness through time, basically. And the reveal scene's really great.
Yeah.
Because the line she says is something like, I don't know who that girl is. And like that's when you first... I mean, you maybe picked up hints on it, but that's when it's first like officially revealed that that's not, those aren't memories, those are futures.
Yeah.
And then it's a little heavy to grasp, but the way that she's able to calm down all these global military forces is by going into her future consciousness, essentially going into the future where she met the Chinese general. He told her his wife's dying words, and then she calls him and tells him those words, and it takes him back down to love.
And they layer it with what's going on currently.
Yeah, these
that
future
event
scenes
and stuff going on with her own family. It's really powerful.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting is you can tell that Amy Adams must have said to the General Shang, like, with all this time stuff, like, that's how I got your phone number, because then when they meet at that gala, he's like, now you have my personal number. Yeah. And then she dials it in the quote-unquote present, which is sort of just it's structure.
What's funny is I think of two things with that moment, besides this, just how awesome this film is. But my first thought is when you think back to something that's like a shitty movie but expertly plotted, which is The Butterfly Effect.
Yep.
They do stuff like that, but it doesn't land
they do
because...
it poorly. Like with the Jesus scene?
Yeah, because it's like soulless almost, where there's the emotional heart of the film is just kind of gimmicky. Yeah. It's more about the gimmick than the story. This one's about the story, and it just has a good device to move it. And
it suits the characters still and everything, and it's still like poetic. Like, what she tells General Shang is his wife's dying words, which they don't dub in the movie, but per the screenwriter, they were... in war, there are no winners, only widows, which is very poetic for what is about to happen if she's not able to convince him to stand down.
If your wife died and said that to you, a general, I feel like that's the perfect
reminder.
Kind of thing. Apparently, the screenwriter spent a lot of time crafting that, making sure it was like perfectly said in Mandarin and really researching. And because the first draft of the script said like insert quote basically, and then he was a little perplexed but impressed that Denny decided to just not put subtitles there.
Yeah, so you don't know what they say. The only reason we know is because the screenwriter has said it publicly.
Yeah.
And it is kind of powerful to not know what the words were, because then he says, remember when you called me, you told me my wife's dying words, which were, and you don't know what they are, but you almost don't need to know.
Yeah.
But then when you find out, it's still like
cuts to her saying them on the phone.
Yeah.
So the only other movie I can think of that's done that so well with time shenanigans basically is the first Bill and Ted movie, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. They do a lot of stuff where they're time traveling and they say like, Ted, remind me after this to hide a spare key right here, and then they pull out a spare key there, and it's very tongue in cheek, but it works
used for humor,
because and it's there's fidelity with it in the universe. It's real basically. So this obviously is a more serious and dire version of that, but
time travel is always a little weird in movies.
Yeah, it's pretty paradoxical. This is a
you can
safe form of time travel because it's consciousness.
Not technically time travel.
Exactly. It's just aware of a plane of existence in a different way.
Yeah. So then after all this, after the stand down, they're getting ready to leave. The aliens leave. all the humans are now sharing their knowledge. Louise has seen into the future where she's written a book on the alien language, so she knows it fully. Everything's solved, essentially. And what the aliens came for is what they tell Louise is like, we're here to meet you and to give you our tool, our weapon, which is time being a non-linear structure, because we will need your help in the future.
Yeah, in 3,000 years.
Yeah, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like it's a positive ending in that, like, things work out. There's no war.
On the grand scale, it's positive.
Yeah.
It tells you that Earth does survive and unites in a way that's good.
Yeah, that we could probably use in our real Earth.
Yeah.
But then there's also this one more emotional.
I'm losing my mind!
Yeah. That's what Michael Stuhlbarg's character, Agent Halpern, probably said. There's one more, like, emotional decision point. It reminded me a lot of the Gone Baby Gone, where you have, like, choice A or B, and both have merit, and it probably is person to person what they would do. But Louise knows that her daughter's going to die at this point. Now that she can see the full future, we've seen already what's going to happen. And so then right at the end of the movie, she asks Jeremy Renner's character, Ian Donnelly, like, if you could see into your future, if you could see everything, would you change anything? And so the conflict is, do I still have my daughter because she's going to die? That's obviously going to be terrible for her, and it's going to be terrible for me because, my daughter dies. And I forget exactly what he says. He says, like, if I could change one thing, I would speak my mind more.
Yeah.
And then he says, like, a nice line where...
I would say what I mean more often.
Yeah,
like
and he says, like, as long as I can remember, I've had my head tilted towards the stars, but... through all this, the most amazing thing that I've seen is you. And it's a sweet line.
Yeah.
But then you find out officially that he is the father and they do have the daughter. And the reason he left her in the future is because he finds out that she knew the whole time that their daughter was gonna die. Hannah, a palindrome. And it's heavy stuff to think about. I mean, I don't know. It is cruel to think of having a child that will die a probably painful way.
Yeah, it's just it's if there's probably an I guess a zero-sum game is where there's a clear winner.
A zero-sum game would be there's a winner and a loser.
Yeah, so this is almost like there's a loser and a loser. So whatever that is,
it's just a loss. Game. I think is what it is.
But yeah, I mean it paints a tough conundrum basically. Yeah. So there's no. As of now, you can clearly say, like, I wouldn't even want to know.
Yeah.
But then in this scenario, you're like, if I could save the world, I guess I want to know. Yeah. So. And
in her future, she's seen all the happiness and all the great things that her daughter's done because she's seen her whole life already. And I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
And this is obviously, some people will take issue with me saying this is a valid comparison, but I know that my dogs won't outlive me given our normal lifespan.
I thought it too, so.
When
you get a dog, you know that there's a finite life.
And with kids, it's different because they have the same lifespan as me, so it would be longer.
Yeah.
But even then, there's still a risk always.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of part of it for her. Part of it's also she understands time differently than everyone else now.
Yeah.
But, no matter what, there's always a risk. There's also a risk that none of this could have happened if they all destroyed themselves. Yeah. So... knowing that, it makes it a bit easier to still go for it. But it's still, that's tough.
Maybe, you and I, we have dogs, but we're not parents. Maybe if any of our parent listeners want to chime in on their thoughts on the ending here and how it makes them feel. Yeah, because, they say parenthood's like such a game changer, and I imagine it is.
So now,
another life on your...
Here's something that kind of complicates that conundrum.
Yeah.
The original story this is based off is called The Story of Your Life? Story of You.
Story of Your Life.
Story of Your Life,
And that was the original name of the movie, but test screenings... And I get it, because it's...
Arrival has a very distinct...
Yeah, especially with the
feel.
plot. Yeah.
So it's like that name intrigues me. The Story of Your Life doesn't intrigue me. But in the original story... her daughter, Hannah, I believe it's still Hannah.
Yep.
She dies around 25 from a mountain climbing accident.
Yeah.
And so it's a preventable thing. But she still is stuck in that she knows it's going to happen, she doesn't prevent it. So it kind of makes it more...
It's like dark.
It's darker, yeah. It's more dire.
Because she has to make the choice not to prevent it because she's already seen it happen or whatever. So they changed it to cancer, leukemia, whatever disease.
Yeah, an unpreventable.
Yeah, because then it makes that choice even harder.
And more tragic, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could argue both are pretty damn tragic.
They're both tragic, but
it makes her not complicit in the death itself.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
So this film's cool because it has a very distinct look, like you mentioned. The cinematographer is Bradford Young.
Yeah, and I believe has he won an Oscar yet? He's been nominated a few times, including for this.
I know I think the only African American cinematographer to be like nominated. I feel like it's a yeah. As of 2018, he's the only African American to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Cinematography.
He's never won, but I think he got nominated for another film.
He did Selma.
Yeah, he did A Most Violent Year. He did Ain't Them Bodies Saints, which is a movie I love. I thought he had done, for some reason I thought he had done Get Out, but he didn't.
They described this film as being what they call dirty sci-fi, where it's not necessarily gritty, but it has a very down-to-earth feeling. It's kind of realistic, muted natural colors. Very realistic and very kind of personal.
Like the ships that the aliens come down in are basically like a flattened penny.
Yeah,
they're
like
thin,
a half potato or something.
Disc, sort of shaped. They're vertical the whole time. They have kind of like a concave.
That gravity scene, man.
Yeah.
When I first watched this movie, that's when I was like, "This is going to be an awesome movie."
Yeah, and what I love,
that's kind of where it first takes you. It's a liminal stage because
that's the first truly alien thing that happens in the movie.
And like they play the sounds that the aliens make, but it's the first time, and that's the thing with a lot of stories, and good stories do it very smart, where they take you through liminality, where you go through a gateway in a sense. So Harry Potter, it's platform 9 3/4. That's a liminal stage where he actually enters the wizarding world.
A new world.
Yeah, and this is where they're entering into the alien world, basically. But having it be you jump off a platform into 0G, then all of a sudden you're in a different level of gravity that aligns a different way.
It's like your orientation changes.
Yeah, and it takes the audience to tell you, hey, this is different now. And
I'm in this alien.
And the way they do it, I mean, it's awesome. Like, it's just completely awesome.
I feel like if there's one complaint I have about general science fiction movies, I'll include Signs just because it's on my mind, but the depiction of aliens is always still like a bipedal creature, 2 eyes, a mouth, a nose, and everything. And like the alien in Aliens, bipedal still, obviously with them like the whole mouth guy jumping out, it's still very foreign, but there's no reason to think that that's how any alien life form that exists or doesn't exist, that's what they would be, that just because that's what we are. So the aliens here, their technology is very foreign. It's not like a ship that you walk around hallways still in. It's the hallway takes you into another world basically, and then the aliens themselves are these like tentacle floating things, and then you're only looking at a small view of them at first, and then there's a later scene where Luis like actually boards their end of the ship, and they're massive, and they float, they don't talk in a normal way, their language is so alien too. It's not like characters like in Prometheus, all the script you'd see on the walls was still like hieroglyphics, but they write in this language, like these circles, they look like a coffee spill blots kind of.
And they basically write both ends of a sentence at the same time.
Like there's no start or end to
because they see time differently.
Exactly. And it all fits into that theme. I mean, there's so many little details of this movie that you can go into. They explain them really well in that they don't explain them. There's no they execute the show don't tell mantra very well.
And a lot of it, I mean, I'm a communication major. That's my major in college. Like, so I love stuff like this where there's a lot of like messaging and communication discussion. So in this film, they do a lot of communication in ways where when the aliens communicate, when the heptapods, as they call them, communicate, it kind of ties to things they describe in the story as they happen also. And for example, they named them Abbott and Costello. That itself, their big bit was about miscommunication. So that's already funny. Then when you mentioned the bomb scene.
Yeah.
It's a really cool sequence because as the audience, the biggest way to create drama is to let the audience know there's a bomb, but not let your characters know.
Isn't there like a concept around that?
I think there's a Hitchcock
concept.
Yeah, he named it before.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is, but
yeah, it's basically just it creates suspense.
There's a ticking bomb in this room,
and the only people that don't know it are the people in the room.
Yeah,
so
the aliens know it.
The aliens know it. They're pointing, but the only time you see them ever doing that is for that. So that's crazy cool.
Yeah.
So they're like trying to communicate in their own way, in a very physical way that we don't get because we don't. They have 7 legs. They're just slapping one on there. That makes no sense. But then they do their hand push thing. Yeah, that's Costello who does it, and Costello ends up dying afterwards. So in our language, we would say Costello died or Costello is dying. When they come back and they talk to Abbott, because Abbott says Costello is in death process because he's seeing it happen, and he knew it was going to happen anyway because he left right beforehand. It's amazing. I mean, it's just like that kind of writing. It
all comes together.
It blows me away because it's just like Abbott willfully left. He knew what was happening. He knew that there's no way to prevent that Costello was about to die. They still show it. You realize it afterwards, and I probably didn't even realize till the second watch, but I was just like, that's crazy.
The second watch of this movie adds so much to the viewing.
For sure.
There's another sequence like that I really like where after one of the better scenes where Louise is explaining some of these concepts to the Colonel is when she has the question, like the core question they're asking is like, why are you on Earth, or what is your purpose on Earth? And she goes over how we need them to know what a question is. We need them to know what your is, not these two, but all these ships. They need to know what a purpose is, or like in this scenario, not generally, stuff like that. She goes over all that. And then later in the movie, when the Chinese side really starts to escalate and talk about how they're going to weaponize and shut things down, close off and all that, Michael Stuhlbarg, who plays like a CIA agent, he tells everyone, he's like, the last report the Chinese got from the aliens, the last thing that they told them was there is no time, which all the humans misinterpret it. They're like, that means that this is almost a threat. This is like what's going to happen? Why isn't there much time? But really, they're saying there is no time.
Like literally.
There's no, and they don't touch on it again.
And they do a couple of those too, where they name a couple of the other like quotes.
And it's so good. Like when you're first watching, they're so clever because when you first watch it, when I saw it, I didn't put together that the memories of her daughter were future.
I didn't think Jodie did either till the very end. Yeah. She was like, "Is that it?" And we were like, "Wait, 30 seconds here, buddy."
So I didn't put that together. So I hadn't thought of time as a moving thing in this.
Yeah.
So when I hear those lines, they're so clever because all their debate about them makes sense. And then when you watch it again, when you know what the play with time that's happening, all these lines take on totally different meaning. It's genius level writing. The writer is Eric Heiserer
for the screenplay.
The short story was Ted Chiang. And he likes the adaptation. He said.
Yeah, I'm sure
he said
he
was. Well, it's pretty different from his version. And he
sometimes
said
the writers don't like that. But
but he said it's rare that you have the original and the adaptation that are both so good and so unique still, but they're still based on the same thing.
That's true.
It's pretty cool. And it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. It was nominated for 8 Academy Awards.
What else we got there?
Best Picture, obviously, as we mentioned. Best Director for Denny. Didn't win. It only won Sound Editing, which makes sense.
What was interesting was it was not nominated for original score, right?
No, and that's because there were songs. Yeah, the composer of the film was Johan Johansson, who actually, he passed away in February of this year from an accidental overdose from a drug cocktail. But he did most of the pieces in the movie, but then the movie begins and ends with another work by Max Richter, a song called On the Nature of Daylight, which is a very beautiful violin.
It's been used in a couple films, including Shutter Island.
Shutter Island is, I don't. You don't like Shutter Island, or you haven't seen?
I didn't care for it when I saw it. I fell asleep halfway through.
I rewatched it actually when I found out this song was in it too. Yeah. But they use it really well, like in some of the flashbacks he's having to his wife, and how like the kids died, and
the film was just too gimmicky for me as a whole.
I get that. It's not great. It
looked nice. I
mean, it's Scorsese, so at its barest, it's still going to have like those good technical aspects. But I can see how like the twists and stuff, how they're layering it is a little much.
If a movie relies just on a twist, and this is a good movie to talk about it because this has a twist in it, but it doesn't.
It's so much more.
It doesn't rely on the twist because
for sure.
Really, the first act tells you what the twist is. You just don't realize it later.
Yeah, and that's
I
smart
like
writing.
films that do it that way.
And they don't try and trick you, though. I mean, they sort of do. They do make it seem like the shots of her daughter are memories, but they never say.
But in a sense, they kind of are memories because
that's actually true.
You're seeing everything non-linear.
Everything is a memory.
Yeah. So it's like she's living it. It's a memory. It's all at the same time. So once you understand that, the fidelity of the film is like still complete. It's still
I never felt like cheated.
No,
like,
and
a big cheat would be, and I hate when a movie does this, where the twist is like so out in left field. One of my big complaints with Contact was the second ship. Like you don't know that second ship is being built after the first one failed. I don't remember the specific details now.
I think there's a very small mention of Japanese investors, but I was going to say
they
that's
mentioned
the
that they
only
were like
hint.
over budget.
That's the only hint you get. Yeah, those two things.
But it was so far out there that it almost took me out of the movie a little bit. And
that's funny. I wonder how many other people felt that way.
Yeah, it felt a little cheap at least.
No, I got you.
But here, you're not like, oh well.
There's a shout out to Contact in this film.
What's that?
The ship that landed near Japan was in Hokkaido, which is where the second site was in Contact. And they did that. It sounded intentional that they put it in there.
Right on.
Which is cool because Contact. I love Contact. There's similarities. It's not the same movie. I joked about it before.
It's not an homage.
But
by any means,
it's a movie about contact with aliens. There's quite a few out there.
Yeah.
So
it's nice to make a nod to one of the good ones. But anyways, we were talking about the best original score.
Yes.
The nomination can only be secured if I don't think it has to be the same person composing the whole thing, but I think all the works to be nominated for best original score have to be written for that movie.
Yeah.
So because this On the Nature of Daylight was used in other films prior, it was ineligible. There was a couple other movies that year that were ineligible for the same reason, but I think if that song were written for this movie, I think this would have been. I mean, the best original score that year was I didn't write it down because I didn't. Probably like La La Land.
Yeah, probably.
But it definitely would. I mean, the score is incredible.
Yeah,
it sets the scene.
But I will
it's
say,
foreign at times. It's like traditional.
As a whole, that's the most standout song.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah, so I could see why the Academy would be hesitant.
Yeah.
Because of that.
The way the violin swells, and I mean, we don't know anything about music. We found out in this research because one of the trivia facts on IMDb was that the song is a palindrome, which palindrome is kind of a clever thing in the movie because same forwards and backwards. They talk about it with their daughter's name, the same forwards and backwards. And when I read that, I was like, Max, play the song. What does this even mean that the song is palindrome? And we couldn't find like anyone really breaking down how it is. But
Scott was timing things.
Yeah, I have notes of me just writing dashes like
I was
I'm
about
doing Morse
to
code.
Try to record it and play it backwards myself.
I was tuning my guitar.
We found someone who did that, who just played it backwards. And
so
it
what
sounds
we think
virtually the same.
Yeah, like the rhythm of the notes or something is the same forwards and backwards. But either way, the song is, it just like, it underscores the emotional moments really well. Like the ending, I cried when I saw it in theaters because you find out that she does still go forward with this. Like all the pieces emotionally come together and then the song kicks in into the credits and it's just like,
it's good,
holy
man.
shit.
Yeah.
It's a great song. But the other nominations, it got Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Editing, Cinematography, Sound, and Sound Editing. It won for Sound Editing. I bet for Editing and Sound, it was up there. Hacksaw Ridge won for both of those, which this is a much better movie than Hacksaw Ridge. I liked Hacksaw Ridge, but
I haven't seen it.
The technical aspects of this movie are, I mean, you could do a whole podcast just about that.
Yeah.
Like the first shot of the alien, the ship landed
the clouds rolling over
in
the
Montana.
hills.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Arrival did win the Scoots Academy Award for Best Cinematography.
That's all that matters. Bradford Young, official Scoots Academy Award winner.
You're welcome. Did Arrival win any others in my first Scoots Academy? I can't remember.
It just wasn't like a sweep.
Well, La La Land won Best Director.
Yeah,
Manchester by the Sea won Best Picture. Manchester by the Sea won Best Screenplay. Yeah, no, I think it was just the one. But still, great year. Nominated for quite a few Scoots Academy Awards. But it got a lot of respect. One of my favorite sites to look at as far as like critical response to movies, it's called criticstop10.com. And what they do is at the end of the year, they compile movie critics' top 10 lists at the end of the year. You see Guardian, Rolling Stone, they all produce them. And then it just kind of gives them average scores and the number of number one ratings it has and everything. And they actually, shout out to whoever does the site, they just updated everything and you can sort buy all the fields and stuff. But Arrival was featured on the 4th most top 10 list by critics that year. So I like using this metric. It's sort of like Rotten Tomatoes in that it's an aggregator to an extent.
Yeah. Let's do a bad version of that. I'm just kidding.
Critics bottom 10.
Yeah.
Or did you just mean try to do the same thing but just do it worse?
Either. I think we're already doing that.
Yeah, yeah, we nailed it. But the movies ahead of it in this list were Moonlight, Manchester by the Sea, and La La Land. So all great movies.
I haven't seen Moonlight still, but I'll say that I probably like Arrival the best out of the other.
I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a good sci-fi movie.
And
this is one of the best sci-fi movies.
A lot of it
for
me is that sci-fi definitely resonates stronger with me.
It's one of your favorite genres too. Yeah.
But I just think as a storytelling convention, it's usually stronger. La La Land, I honestly don't know if I'll ever watch it again. It was fine. I wasn't as crazy about it as everyone else. I liked it. And the songs still get stuck in my head.
I had the soundtrack going on my Spotify for a long time. It had staying power with me.
But I never have a desire to watch it so much. Sure. And then Manchester by the Sea is so depressing. I know you've seen it a ton, but I would watch it.
I don't think it's depressing personally. This isn't that episode, but I actually think the ending is very happy in that movie.
I mean, to me, it's a neutral ending. The ending itself is the issue. It's that
it's
act
everything
2,
up to
the
it,
dark moment of the soul is like one of the top 5 darkest moments of the soul I've ever seen.
It's so well done.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Manchester by the Sea, dude.
Anyway.
And then Moonlight is just a phenomenal coming of age.
So I want to see it. But once I can't give a fair speaking to it. So.
And then
but I'll say Arrival I'll gladly watch once a year for the rest of my life. I wouldn't even complain about that.
This might be a good time to transition to this, but I was going to ask earlier and it never came up organically. But now that we're talking about the Oscars, did you see that they announced some new categories?
Yeah, that most popular or something?
The big new one that's controversial that they announced is like the best popular film.
I just don't get it.
Yeah, it's like for
I've seen
decades
some
now.
People argue that it's so that they can guarantee Black Panther wins an award. But then I've also seen some people argue that almost is like creating separate but equal.
Yeah.
So I've seen both arguments, and I'm like, okay. To me, I just think it's a dumb category because there's a joke. There's a Best Popular Award already in existence. It's called Money.
Yeah.
That's it. Top 10 grossing films.
There's nobody who was like, Spider-Man Homecoming was really good. Where's its Oscar?
Yeah, that's the thing.
It made plenty of money. It's a win for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Kids' Choice Awards. There you go.
There you go.
MTV Movie Awards. There you go.
There you go.
Even Golden Globes. I mean, sure. Damn. Why not? But Academy Awards is, it's about the artistic merit of a bunch of judgy assholes picking their favorite films.
But it is supposed to be that.
But no, I mean,
like that at its core, whether it's executed well or not.
To me, popularity is no.
It shouldn't be a part of it.
It does. There's no artistic merit to it. So what's the point? But at the same time, who knows what it'll lead to? But to me, it seems like a way to siphon out all these genre films they're tired of seeing.
Yeah. I wonder if there was any pressure from any studios, because like now, let's say that so Black Panther would win an award. Now when they re-release Black Panther in 10 years on Blu-ray, it's 3-time Academy Award winner, including Best Popular Film or something like that.
I also...
Or maybe like Best Picture popular category.
Some people that I watch these other film podcasters, they were making a point that really just means eventually the Fast series will get, like another consideration for Academy Awards here. I don't know if they've ever won sound or editing or anything, but or even been nominated. But
I don't know either. But
by this rule, eventually those could be up there.
But it's not most popular film; it's best popular film. And then I don't know how they're going to determine what makes a film popular.
The only benefit I could see of it is that it could allow less popular but well-deserving films to get in the spotlight for Best Picture. But even then, they could still do that.
Yeah, and I mean, for decades now, the Academy Awards has tried to bridge the gap between people who actually watch the Academy Awards and people who go to the movies twice a year and watch Netflix. They've tried to get those people to watch.
I'm more offended by the fact that even though I think the Academy Awards is too damn long for me to watch all the time.
It's way too long.
That they want to now give awards during commercial breaks and come back and show like a summary
some of the technical awards are
and I'm just like...
The Grammys has always done that, but but
it just feels
there's like 90 Grammys because for each genre it has its own award.
Yeah,
but
and then they have their technical stuff.
Yeah.
So... But for me, it just feels like just show. This is the only time those people will ever be on a stage.
Yeah, like who?
Show them. Give
best
them their
production
moment.
design. If you don't give an award for that, people won't even think about what production design.
Yeah.
And I barely know what it is. In fact, I don't know what it is.
I just pretend.
I don't even pretend. I don't know what production design.
By this point, you're too afraid to ask.
I am. I think it's dumb.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. But
would Arrival count as a popular film? It got a wide release. It made over $200 million at the box.
I mean, maybe.
See, I don't know what the.
But I feel like a popular has to be you make that in a weekend.
What?
You know? Like, these films they mention.
Is it going to be just that level?
Well, that's what I wonder. It's like, because some films have a long lifespan and are well praised throughout it, and some are like, boom, over the weekend they've made, for
Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom versus
think like Get Out.
Grade.
Get Out stayed in theaters forever and made a shit ton of money and was made for very cheap amounts of money and is definitely a popular film, but is also definitely deserving of Best Picture regardless of all that. Yeah. And then you have something like Jurassic World made a shit ton of money. It's pretty divisive.
But it's probably not going to be a Best Picture nom on its own.
Definitely not. Yeah. But that's the thing is like, it's just like, that's fine that it's not a Best Picture. Yeah. Its award is the baskets full of money they all made. Like that should be an award unto itself, basically. So
I don't like it. I wonder if it could even hurt a film in the future, like Black Panther, let's say, that might be borderline Best Picture. Let's say, I don't know, like a borderline nom, because now the voters might be like, well, Black Panther is going to get Best Popular, so we don't even need to nominate it here.
Just think, would Return of the King ever get nominated if Best Popular existed back then? Probably not.
Probably not. But it should win both. So who knows what's going to happen?
Can it be nominated for both?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think they've announced the details of it.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake.
If they want to fix, quote unquote, fix the Oscars, make it shorter. Mm-hmm. Don't backload it where the like 3 awards you really want to see are the last 3.
Yeah.
They do Best Actress, Best Actor, and Best Picture in the last 10 minutes.
There's like 45 minutes of bullshit before it, too. That's not awards.
That we don't want to see.
Exactly.
Like when Jimmy Kimmel leads all the actors into another movie theater, that was very silly.
Eating pizza and taking selfies.
A selfie, yeah. Get rid of that stuff.
Get rid of that.
Do more of the stuff where you honor film history. Give the award winners and nominees the spotlight.
I will say this though, with honoring history, don't bring old people out on the stage anymore. Yeah. If you're too old to like move, and they bring you on stage and you just look like you're staring around confused, they don't put them on stage. Show us a picture.
Do the like a little compilation, a little video comp of some old westerns.
Like when so with Hidden Figures, they brought out, I think that was one of the ones where they brought out a very elderly woman. And she just was kind of...
I think she was one of the people it was based on, if I remember correctly. But
it was just like, that's cool. I'm down with that. Yeah. But then at certain points, they bring out like really, really old folks, and you're just like, shouldn't they be in bed by now? Like, it's like 10:45 p.m. I should be in bed by now.
Pre-record a little video message. Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed Hidden Figures. I sure did.
Yeah, just do that.
Perfect.
So, but no, I think also
there's lots you could do to fix the
there's a lot
presentation
of
itself, but
pretentiousness and patting themselves on the back.
Oh yeah, it's very self-congratulatory.
Is great for them, but for audiences doesn't really land. Stop honoring people like Roman Polanski and Woody Allen. Yeah. Just don't do that.
Yeah.
Especially now as we move forward, just don't have a standing ovation for Roman Polanski. Just
try not to skirt that.
Yeah, just
even if you think it, just think it.
Yeah, just think it.
And don't out loud it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
This is a big digression, but
basically, I mean, it's still a valid conversation.
No, I mean it is, yeah. And we've talked about Arrival a lot already, and I think today I think we talked about a lot of good little details. Yeah. It's on. Was it on Amazon streaming?
It's on Hulu
watched
and
the
Amazon.
Blu-ray, of course.
Yeah.
The ultimate audio-visual experience. This episode's brought to you by Blu-ray, but. Yeah, check it out if you haven't. If you're on the edge, if you only sort of like sci-fi, I still think the human story in here is enough to get you.
Yeah, and I mean...
And it's not like there's like blaster guns and stuff like that.
I think people who say they don't like sci-fi, they don't like Star Wars or Star Trek. That's all they mean. Yeah. I don't... Because everything else is... I mean, you could almost argue like House of Science Fiction, the TV show, you know? So it's...
Yeah. It's as
a big
science
genre.
Fiction as that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It's worth a shot, though. And if you do check it out based on our discussion today, leave us a comment on the Facebook or on Twitter. Let us know what you think.
Or shoot us an email at podcast@thecriticalbreakdown.com.
Yeah, and that Twitter, of course, is @breakdowncast.
And the website's thecriticalbreakdown.com.
Bada bing and bada boom. Well, Max, where can the good people find you?
You can find me enjoying my future memories with Amy Adams, or you can find me at Max Rivera Film on Twitter.
You can find me and Jeremy Renner with our head tilted towards the stars. Or you can find us me at breakdown_Scott on
Jeremy
Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, he hangs out sometimes.
Yeah.
We didn't talk enough about him because I love how understated his performance is.
Yeah.
He's such like a dorky dad scientist with his glasses on the brim of his nose.
I think it was after seeing American Hustle that he plays the mayor.
Yeah.
And then I was never that crazy about him as Hawkeye. But in seeing that and then seeing this is what kind of made me be like, Renner's okay. I like Renner now.
And that is an official podcast opinion. We like Renner.
Hey, I went on record after seeing this movie already.
I know you did, but it's good to have it again just in case. I'm on Letterboxd as well at Stenin2. Check out all the reviews I write there. Little thoughts. I think I've rated over 800 movies now on Letterboxd. Nice. I try to rate. I think I've rated every movie I've seen.
A lot of bathroom breaks.
Yeah, a lot of popcorn. Our music is done by Jason Brown.
Our artwork is done by Josh Rivera.
And our fart work is done by Wally, the podcast Alien.
And we're the Heptapodcast Boys.
Ooh. Bam.
Fire.
Next week on the Critical Breakdown,
we're stepping into the ring and we're watching Creed. Rated 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Adrian.